Hello and welcome to the very first edition of the Pokerfuse podcast. I'm with Nick Jones. My name is Mike Gentili, and we are here to talk about the week in the news.
Hi guys, very excited to be here. Are we calling this officially episode 1 of the Pokerfuse podcast, Mike, or is this like a pilot episode?
I think pilots are always called episode 1. We could call it episode 0.
So in my head, I've been thinking we were recording like a pilot, but I felt that's maybe a little bit defeatist. Like we just...
Well, from my experience, pilots are usually, they also go under episode 1 as well.
Okay, so we can go episode 1. So Mike, then tell me why after coming up to 8 years of us doing Pokerfuse,
8 years, wow, yeah.
Coming up to 6 years of Poker Industry Pro, over 5 years of F5 Poker, why today are we sitting down to record our first ever podcast together?
Yeah, that is a great question.
Because I've got an answer, but I wanted to see what you said.
Well, I have partial answer and partial question to answer. The answer would be is because you changed your mind. Something that we had talked about in the past many times doing, but never did. But my question then would be, why? What changed?
Well, so I think every time that we meet up, like so Mike, if you can't tell from the accents, Mike is from the United States of America, and whereas I am from England, and we live and work in different continents. We try and meet up like a couple of times a year. We've recently just been to the Bahamas for the PSPC, and I think every time that we come away from a trip where we're talking a lot of shop, we're meeting up with a lot of other journalists, a lot of poker players, a lot of the team there, we get really pumped up, we get really psyched, and we think, wow, we've got to do a podcast, we've got to do video or something. Generally speaking, it's you who says that, and I'm the boring, pragmatic one that says there's no money in podcasts, everyone's solid, and it's a total time sink. But this time, I was the one who came back and said it, and then you just went, yeah, right. I thought.
Yeah. So why? Why did you come back and say it this time?
I don't know. I listened to a lot of podcasts when I was away, and I don't know. It's really interesting. It's really interesting to hear what other people say, and I just think we write a lot. We should put our voices to it. So here we are.
I definitely think we have something to add to the conversation on various topics. Maybe even input that goes beyond the content that we produce now, which is mostly written. Being that things are in writing, you don't always have the opportunity to interject opinion on certain topics unless you're creating an entire opinion piece. A lot of our stuff is very news-based, and so we don't get the chance to expand on some topics, so I think this is a good platform to do that.
Okay, well, with that in mind, then, I suppose we should probably get started.
Yeah, all right. What are we talking about today?
6+ Hold'em, a game that on Pokerfuse and on Pro we've been talking about for maybe 4 or 5 months. That finally last week in the Bahamas, PokerStars started to give an indication that maybe it is a game that they might be launching. And then this week it did launch.
Yeah, and I believe it was Jason Somerville that actually let the cat out of the bag during a live stream. I believe it was during the PSPC with the actual launch date. And since we were down there in the Bahamas, PokerStars took that opportunity to gather some of the media personnel and give us a little course on their version of the game that they would be launching. And we got a chance to actually play it live, which was quite exciting.
Yeah, they didn't actually say, "Oh, we're launching it in a few days' time, guys." They just said, "If you'd like to come and learn this game called 6+ Hold'em, feel free to come on down," which is an interesting experience. But there were no actual details revealed. I think it was maybe 4 days before it came online for real money.
Yeah, it was just before, but they were still keeping their cards close to the vest, and they weren't giving us any details, but they did allow us to play. They gave us access to Lex, who's their team pro, and sounded like he was one of the major influences in developing that product.
Yeah, and he seemed generally pretty excited about the game.
Yeah, he did. And he sat down with us and gave us some pointers because, obviously, with the shorter amount of cards available in the deck and the switching of one of the hand rankings, it's kind of counterintuitive if you're used to playing Texas Hold'em.
Yeah. So this game finally came online, I think, just over a week ago, maybe, for real money. It is live on the .com and .eu websites. It went live in the UK, Denmark, and Sweden, I think. Some of the smaller licenses yet to have it. But yeah, it launched for real money. It launched for across, I think, the widest range of stake bands that PokerStars has launched a new real money game. So you can play it from, I think, the equivalent of like 2 cent, 4 cent, all the way up to 200, 400. So this is a big push for the game. It certainly suggests that PokerStars is putting a lot behind it, has got quite a lot of confidence in the success of this game.
Yeah, last year PokerStars released, what was it, 4, 5?
Yeah, 4, I think, yeah.
4 new poker variants, and this is the one that I have the most confidence in that it will become a big hit. In fact, I think I have a friendly wager with somebody on Twitter, and Game Intel was kind enough to provide some data on the first week of play compared to some of the other new games that PokerStars has launched. So it's looking like it's going to be successful. Nick, tell us a bit about what some of the rule differences are between 6+ and traditional.
Yeah, you're going to test me now. Test that I was actually paying attention whilst we were taught this game. So yeah, obviously, so the Deuce to 5, Deuce to 6 are removed from the deck.
6+ is available, so Deuce to 5.
Yeah, there it is. So Deuce to 5 is removed from the deck, so you can make a straight with the A6, 7, 8, 9. And there's one ranking change, and that ranking change we constantly got wrong when we were playing. It is the sets beat straights.
No. It's that flushes beat full houses.
No.
Yes. Absolutely.
You sure?
100%. Flushes beat full houses.
Yes, yeah, you're right. So that's actually quite interesting because this is one of those games that I think 100% people are going to be absolutely familiar with. I think it's a great game for streaming if you're into watching it on Twitch. And PokerStars obviously has got a lot of ambassadors who stream on Twitch, Lex being one of them. And I think it's a great game because you can watch it and it's like you're playing Texas Hold'em. It looks just like Texas Hold'em, except you're making bigger hands and there's lots more action. And because it's all played with anti-pre-flop and just one blind posted by the button, there's lots of justifiable pre-flop play, a lot of high V pipping. So it's instantly recognizable. But also can be, for that reason, quite confusing because, there's that one rule change that I constantly forget.
Yeah, I found myself betting on the turn to induce action from a flush draw when I had a full house. And I found out later that, that's probably not something you want to do.
Yeah. So 6+ Hold'em, also known as Short Deck. I mean, PokerStars not the first to spread it online. It has been available on iPokerskins for, I think, maybe a year. It's available on WPN. But obviously, when PokerStars puts their name behind a game, everyone's going to pay attention. A lot of people are going to be learning it. So it's going to be really interesting to see how successful it is. Their temporary games before lasted about 6 to 8 weeks. So we expect this to be live until the end of March at the earliest. I'd be very surprised if it didn't last a bit longer. I think we could look out for whether this variant will be spread in tournaments in the future. Obviously, that's going to be a big indicator that PokerStars, going to keep it around for a long time. But so exciting new game, definitely one that we'll be keeping our eyes on. The biggest news so far this year, one that everyone is still disseminating, everyone's trying to understand, is the Department of Justice's recent reinterpretation of the Wire Act in the United States. Yeah,
that has the potential to be a game changer in the U.S. And just for those that are not familiar, the Wire Act actually was came into law in 1961, and it was a law designed to prevent sports betting from states where it was illegal mostly into Nevada, where it was legal, via telephone lines. So that's why it was called the Wire Act. Since then, the Department of Justice has been toying with the idea of applying it more broadly, specifically to internet gambling. But in 2011, under the Obama administration, the DOJ released their opinion that the Wire Act applied only to sports betting. That was in play until earlier this month.
What did happen last week that's got everybody reeling?
Well, the Department of Justice issued a new opinion on the Wire Act, saying that it applied to activities beyond sports betting, basically all interstate internet gambling throughout the U.S.
And I mean, it seems that online poker, therefore, is kind of directly in the crosshairs.
Well, currently, the All-American Poker Network, which houses 888 and WSOP.com, states that it's currently running in our Nevada, New Jersey, and Delaware. And that is currently the only cross-border online poker network that is up and running in the U.S. But we do have Pennsylvania coming online at some point here in 2019. And I'm sure that the other major online poker networks in New Jersey, which include Party Poker and PokerStars, were looking at combining their liquidity in New Jersey with their operations in Pennsylvania once that gets up and running.
Do you think that if companies feel that they can't have liquidity sharing with Pennsylvania, is that going to discourage a lot of operators from even being interested in entering the market?
Well, what's going to happen is, let's back up a bit. And from the beginning, even though the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board did not commit to joining the other states in liquidity sharing, we do know from the regulators in New Jersey that they had been in talks with Pennsylvania regarding this happening for years. So I'm sure that all the operators expected that to happen. But the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board did was they came out and they gave their operators 30 days to submit new plans. Now, the plans that they submitted prior to that, to the Wire Act being reinterpreted, we do not know, but it most likely included facilities that would have been out of state to house some of these online gaming operations, which under the new interpretation of the Wire Act would therefore be illegal. So the Gaming Control Board came in, they said, hey, listen, guys, we know that you had plans to do other things. You now have 30 days to submit new plans. However, that's just to submit the plans. Who knows how long it will take to actually get things in place where they can launch under those new plans. That could cause significant delays with getting online poker up and running in Pennsylvania.
So could those new plans somehow involve sharing liquidity across borders?
Well, they can't because they need to be in compliance with the current interpretation of the Wire Act under the Trump administration. So the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board is saying, hey, listen, everything needs to be self-contained within the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay, so, I mean, so it sounds like then it's, as it stands today, it's off the table that Pennsylvania will be anything other than a closed state in terms of online poker liquidity.
It will be segregated as of right now unless something changes prior to that.
So what are the next kind of things that we expect to happen? How we see this could unfold over the next few weeks?
Well, we can look at that in the short term, which if things play out as we suspect, we would get some indication from the Department of Justice on just how they plan to enforce this new opinion. I believe Chris Grove had sent around in one of his reports the news of the expectations that the DOJ would be issuing enforcement guidelines within the next week. So that is what we're looking at as the most immediate domino to fall. After that, a lot depends on how they claim they're going to enforce this new opinion, but I would expect that financial institutions are the next one that everyone's looking at. They are traditionally more risk adverse than many other industries, and if they start pulling out of funding for online gaming, that could have a detrimental effect. More on the long term, there's really three paths that this can take. One is that this can be escalated to the courts, who could then make a decision, because right now all we have is an opinion from the Department of Justice, and what that is not settled law. A case before the courts would be settled law. Another potential path that could happen is we can get new legislation that would override or undo the Wire Act, and then basically mean that the opinion of that Wire Act would no longer be applicable. But we've seen how slow Congress has been to act, so that could be a long shot. And then I guess the third potential path would be just the status quo, and it's just in the current DOJ opinion would stay in place until a new administration comes in and perhaps we get another revised opinion of the Wire Act. And
do you think Caesars, WSOP, 888 with their tri-state network, they're out there, offering online poker across state lines? If they kind of hold their ground and nothing happens, would that be an indication that third potential avenue is the one we take, if they decide that they can kind of stand their ground as they are today?
Yeah, a lot is going to depend on what actually comes out in these enforcement guidelines from the Department of Justice. If they come out and they say, hey, listen, we're going after any online gaming that crosses state lines, then that could force Caesars to reevaluate their position and or file a lawsuit to try and get some sort of injunction to stop that enforcement until a court makes a formal decision on this case. Another big topic this week has been the change that PokerStars has made to the buy-in for the Sunday Million. They've taken the buy-in from, $215 down to $109?
Yeah, so it's one of those small changes that, PokerStars and all operators are always making slight tweaks to their schedule. But I think this news is, it means a lot to a lot of people, because the Sunday Million has been, online poker's big weekly tournament for kind of like two eras of the online poker industry. This has been going for 13 years. So we are talking pre-UGEA. So back when, party poker was king dog and in the United States, into the post-UGEA world where it was PokerStars and Full Tilt Poker, through Black Friday and the withdrawal from the United States, through the entire kind of regulation and segregation of the European markets with Spain and France and Italy, through the withdrawal of Australia, we've always had on Sunday one tournament where you combine for $215 and you can play in a prize pool for $1 million.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid track record there.
Yeah, and it's they've had one-offs, they've had half price Sunday Millions in the past, they've had anniversary Sunday Millions. They introduced a single rebuy. We think we couldn't find the exact date for this. We think it's about 18 months ago they permitted single re-entry. It was during a quiet summer in 2017 they had it back in, because it was always kind of danced around overlays like during the quiet summer period. So they added that in. But other than that, it has been a staple and been the single thing. So obviously this piece of news has been picked up by a lot of people. It has been disseminated by a lot of people, and a lot of people have got quite strong opinions on it.
Yeah, I was surprised at a lot of the reaction that I saw coming through social media and on the forums. It was not what I had expected.
No, so we actually were told this information ahead of it going live about a week or so ago, and I think both of us thought, like, broadly speaking, we were just told the information straight up. It wasn't with a lot of marketing in it. We weren't sold on the idea. We just heard that they were going to do this, and I think we both thought, yeah, this is a really good step. Honestly, we thought that Obviously, it costs half as much to play for the same prize pool. It requires 10,000 people now to enter the tournament rather than 5,000. So this is quite ambitious from PokerStars. And it certainly aligns with their overall goals of what they're trying to do, getting more people, into poker and playing in big tournaments.
Yeah, so when we found out about it, we were down in the Bahamas. And the first thing that jumped in my mind was, wow, they're trying to recapture some of the excitement from the PSBC by making it more accessible to more people. So I looked at it as a good thing, but the community may have reacted a little bit differently.
Yeah, so I would say that the reaction has been, again, I mean, so this is the reaction in obviously the vocal subset of online poker players, and a large number of them will be people who used to play the Sunday Million and can't anymore due to regulation. A lot of people in social media, in forums from the United States, obviously can't play on PokerStars anymore, or people who are already regulars in the Sunday Million. So their perspective is certainly quite different from ours and some other players and maybe more recreational players. But I'd say that the criticisms fall into two buckets, both of which I admit that I did not kind of immediately consider. So one was the rake. So it was a 215, now it's a 109. So proportionally speaking, the rake has increased from, depending on how you calculate it, 7.5 up to 9% or something like that. If PokerStars fills the tournament every week, which I imagine they will do, certainly initially, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But if they fill it each week, it works out an extra 15,000 or 25,000 a week, something like that.
For each tournament?
Per each tournament, yeah, $15,000. Yeah, it's gone from $75,000 to $90,000, I think, is how much they'll collect if it fills. So that sounds like a lot. And, I saw somebody say, across the year, that's like $800,000. That sounds like a big number. And people say, it's another, rate grab from PokerStars, etc. The reality is that PokerStars business, and, the entire online gaming industry is so large that these numbers are, there are literal rounding errors on the balance sheet. If you look at how much money the Stars Groups makes, it will not be, they do not go to enough significant figures for these kinds of numbers to show up. I worked out that they make something like $15,000 every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Wow.
So this is not a change. I'm pretty sure the spin and go tables do that in an hour. This is not a change they did to penny pinch. So I don't think it was their motivation. I will say that PokerStars potentially missed an opportunity to cut this criticism off before it started by maybe making it, a 105 buy-in or a 106 buy-in, and that would prevent people from even kind of reaching to that crutch of an argument. With that said, I imagine I'm just guessing here, but I imagine they considered that, and I think they thought that. If you do that just for one tournament, 109 is their standard buy-in for $100 tournaments. They have others on the schedule. 215 is the standard $200 tournament. So if you go and make it a 105, the people are going to think, oh, now I'm getting ripped off if I enter a Wednesday 109. I'll save that money for the Sunday. So, and it, I don't know, aesthetically, it looks a bit odd, one a bit off. So I can understand people saying like, this is going to cost me more rake effectively. And you could even say that maybe it was a little tone deaf of PokerStars, with all the chat about rake and that kind of thing, to maybe miss a trick there. Maybe make it the first month or 2 months, make it rake free or something like that. Would have kind of avoided all those issues. But so the other thing is people saying that there's a lack of prestige now. So obviously if you're playing this, you now have to wade through more people to win first place prize. Obviously more spots are going to get paid out.
That seems to me like it's more prestige. You've made your way through a bigger field.
Yeah, I suppose people would argue. It's another way of saying that, well, more people get to enter it, so it's less specialized. It loses some of it. I'm not sure that the thing is, most people would agree that, PokerStars should be trying to get more people playing online poker, right? Whether you're a hardcore regular, a casual player, a commentator, whatever, that's what PokerStars wants to do. Everyone's got their opinions on how they should do it, but I see a lot of conversation here with nobody really thinking, is this good for players who weren't playing it before? Because for me personally, I don't play a lot of online poker unless I need to, check out clients or I want to have a little dabble. But I instantly thought like $100. Like if I'm in on a Sunday, got nothing else to do, maybe I play. When it's $200, that's for me, that's quite a bit of money. I probably wouldn't just put on that punt, but 80 quid or whatever, maybe I'll give it a shot. I think that bracket should introduce it to so many more people who wouldn't have considered playing it. The people who played the I think the $11 Storm, and there's the $22 warm up, I believe. Those people might be like, you know what, maybe I'll try the 100. The 200 is always going to be out of their price range. I'm sure PokerStars has done their maths on it. They've seen that this will attract a different caliber of person to compete for a first place prize that will hopefully still be $100,000. So we're still waiting to see what their structure will be. But and currently first place prize is around 150,000. I'd like to see them say like the first place prize is kind of guaranteed at 100,000. We'll see how flat the payout structure is, but that's a lot more people going like, hey, I could play on a Sunday and make six figures. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems to me like it's definitely got marketing appeal. And I guess I'm just struggling to understand some of the criticism. When you go from 100 to 200, it's not like you're at the World Series of Poker and you go from playing a $400 bracelet event to the $50,000 Players Championship. I can see that there's a difference there in prestige. Here you're going from 100 to 200. How much more prestigious is it to win a $200 tournament than a $100 tournament? So that one I'm failing to grasp. As far as the rate goes, I understand that I'm not going to wade into the whole rake debate. I know that I'm a bit removed from being a high volume player. So maybe I'm a little bit out of touch with these nuances and the differences in rake. But again, it seems like the field would be softer, and that could compensate for at least part of the increase in rake.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, it's still, you're paying $9. If you look at it from like an entertainment perspective, you're paying $9 for what is probably going to be, 2 to 4 hours of entertainment, up to maybe 10 hours if you run really, really deep. It still seems like, of all the poker that's available, it still seems like a really good kind of bang for your buck type equation.
So when does this start?
Yeah, so the very first one is this Sunday. They've been running satellites all week for it. We will be waiting to see if they get 10,000 runners to cover that guarantee, and obviously we'll be watching carefully to see how people react. I'd be very surprised if they don't make it the first couple of weeks. We're obviously in the height of the online poker season as well. Literally, peak January, mid-January to late January is the high of the industry. So we'll be watching to see how it goes this week, and then onwards into the quieter months just to see how it performs. And
I've seen some emails flying back and forth across the Pokerfuse desk over here with PokerStars. Am I correct in assuming there might be more information to come? Yes. So we have some questions over to, I believe, Severin Rassa over at PokerStars, who's going to answer some of our questions about their motivations behind doing this, some of their goals into the future, and a little exclusive or two potentially about some upcoming big events. So keep an eye on Pokerfuse next week for that to come. Wow, okay, so episode 1, so I was going to say pilot done, but I'm definitely going to say that's episode 1 now in the bag of the Pokerfuse podcast. Yeah, huh? Wow, that's It seemed to go pretty smoothly. I'm surprised, since this is really both of our first times doing anything like this. I'm surprised that we've kept this under a tight 30 minutes, because that was our goal initially. I think in the world of the podcast, if we were sat down with other podcast shows at the poker table, we would be the tight, aggressive rock sitting on the bottom. Tight 30 minutes. When we're entering a pot, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of chat, but we're not going to cover other guys. There's Dat Poker podcast now. They're loose aggressive, they're splashy, they got a great table image, a lot of chat at the table. We're gonna fill the tight aggressive role. Are we? Well, we'll see how that goes. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to our inaugural episode, and we hope to see you again next week. Bye, everyone.